doctrine of separation of powers. We also call it as doctrine of separation powers. So we have discussed the features of parliamentary form of government. We have discussed the features of presidential form of government. Then what are the advantages of parliamentary form of government, that is parliamentary system? We know parliamentary system has its own advantages, and even presidential system has its demerits. So it is not that, I mean, there was no such system evolved where we have both the merits of parliamentary system and presidential system at one place. We know that parliamentary system provides us responsibility and presidential system provides us a stability of the government. But our constitutional founding fathers have thought that it is they given more importance to the responsibility than stability, because we were very amateur state, we were very newly born country, so we need not to experiment with the thing what we have not experienced in the past. So we were familiar with the British parliamentary system, and hence we have opted for parliamentary system of government. So even in parliamentary system of government we have many merits, and that is the reason why we are successful even after 75 years of independence. We have a very stable and responsible form of government, excepting few years in between. So in parliamentary form of government there is a harmony between legislature and executive. When we say harmony between legislature and executive, the same thing, the dual membership comes into picture, because the executive and legislature are same. So the person who is part of executive is also a part of legislature. So obviously there may be no conflict of interest, because whatever the law is formulated and passed in the house of the parliament, that same law should be implemented by the same person, because the executive is also legislature, and by not taking the help of implementing agency, that is bureaucrats, the minister would implement those policies. The minister would be political head and bureaucrats are the administrative head, which is a implementing agency. But here why we say harmony? Because here the same person who is involved in formulating and passing the law would be supervising that such policies should be get implemented. So obviously there will be a harmony between the legislature and executive. This principle, this merit goes against the presidential form of government. In presidential form of government, we say that legislatures and executive are separated. There is a doctrine of separation of powers. So definitely this is not the feature of presidential form of government. But in India, as we have dual membership, where the legislature is also the head of the executive, so definitely there will be a harmony. There will be no conflict of interest. And we know responsible government. When we call this as a responsible government, the parliament, the members of the parliament are responsible. So whoever gets elected as a parliament, who forms the government, they will be a part of the executive, that is council of ministers or cabinet minister headed by the prime minister. And for whatever action the government takes, it is the council of minister headed by the prime minister is responsible to the parliament and to the Lok Sabha. So ultimately they are responsible to the people, because the people who got them elected directly and sent to the parliament to form the government if they have majority. So they are responsible to the government, and the government, if could not prove its majority in the Lok Sabha or in the parliament, there is a chance to get dissolved. If the majority is lost in the house of the parliament, then the government will dissolve and a separate election or another elections would be conducted, or if any party which can prove the majority would form the government. So here, unlike presidential form of government in America, the parliamentary form of government is responsible government and it is responsible to the parliament. prevents despotism. When we say we are a responsible government, and when we also say that the executive and legislature are responsible to the parliament, definitely there won't be a sense of despotism. There won't be an element of autocratic rule. So it prevents despotism, because at any point of time, if the executive acts in such a way which is not inconsistent or not inconsistent with the parliament or the constitution, definitely there will be a opposition party which questions in the house. We have many such tools, like we have debates, discussions, we have question hour, we have short notice, we have adjournment motion, no confidence motion, censure motions. So we have many tools which could make the government to not act in a despotic way, because we already have an opposition party which on behalf of the people would ask the government on its failures. So it definitely prevents despotism, and this is not with the case of American presidential system, because in America we have a president who is both the head of the state and also the head of the government. He may in case turn as despot, because he has a fixed tenure of 4 years, and he is also not responsible for the Congress. So definitely there might be a chance of turning despot, but in India we generally do not find this. If there is a party which got ultimate majority, there may be some chances to turn, Prime Minister could turn as a despot, but otherwise, because parliamentary system of government is a responsible government, is responsible to the Lok Sabha and it's responsible to the parliament in general, so there is a less chances to become a despot government. We have ready alternate government. This is a beauty of a parliamentary form of government, because we know there is an opposition party, there is a ruling party, and a ruling party might be having a majority, but it is not that there is no opposition party to question the policies of the ruling party. Obviously, when there are elections, there will be a verdict of few people on behalf of the opposition party also. The party which has lesser votes will not form the government, or the party which has a clear majority, or in case there is no majority, with a coalition with other parties, a party which is the largest party, which got votes as the largest party, will form the government. So the alternate is here the opposition party. The opposition party which is not ruling will be ready to form a government in case the ruling party loses its confidence in the Lok Sabha. So we have a ready alternative government. This is also an important feature. We know that in Britain we have a shadow cabinet. Shadow cabinet is, we have opposition party which will act as a shadow cabinet. They will have a one-to-one cabinet ministers. So they will be ready, or it becomes a training ground for the opposition party to evolve themselves as perfect ministers in coming future. So here in our case we say the opposition party acts as a ready alternative government. Whenever there is a majority lost in the Lok Sabha, the president would call the leader of the opposition to form the government and to prove its majority. So we have a ready alternative government, which is a merit of parliamentary system. This ready alternative government is not found in presidential form of government. We have a wide representation. As we know, the government is directly elected, the Lok Sabha members are directly elected. So obviously the leader of the party would choose an important person from all the sections of the society. He may also choose the person from different regions, different religions. That gives a secular color to the cabinet, and we have a wide representation here. So this is also an advantage, because it would create a stability or equality among the section of the society. This wide representation is also a merit of presidential form of government, where the president would choose anyone free-handedly. The president could choose anyone irrespective of the members of the Congress. So what are the demerits? Demerits of parliamentary system. The first demerit is when we have opted for a responsible form of government that is provided by the parliamentary form of government. But as we know, both responsibility and stability do not go with parliamentary form of government. When we have chosen for a responsible government, definitely it is unstable government. Why we say it's an unstable government? Because the Lok Sabha is subjected to dissolution. In any case, if the ruling party could not prove its majority, or if the no confidence motion passed by the opposition is passed, then the government would dissolve, the Lok Sabha would dissolve, and there may be a separate election or next elections. So this concept is a demerit of parliamentary form of government. Though we know that in parliamentary form of government, the government is responsible to the parliament, but it is not stable. So there is one drawback of the parliamentary form of government. And because the government is unstable, generally there may be chances of discontinuity of the policies, because if a government is elected and if that government runs for 2 years and launched many programs, and what if that government dissolves by losing its majority in the house, those policies may not be continued with the new government. So there may be a chances of discontinuity or no continuity of the policies. This we have seen in many cases. When Indira Gandhi has lost elections and Morarji Desai has become Prime Minister, then Morarji Desai has brought many policies. Again, after losing of Morarji Desai, which was a short-lived government, Indira Gandhi has come to power and she have again discontinued what are the policies the previous government has brought. So we could generally sense that where there is an element of dissolution of the Lok Sabha, or when any one party did not got the majority to form the full government, may have problems of not continuing their policies. So this is also a demerit of the parliamentary form of government. So this is dictatorship of policies. Dictatorship is, see, when there is a majority, there is a clear majority in the house, there is no need of opposition, or notwithstanding to the questions or pressure of the opposition, the ruling party could go with its policies. That is, there may be a sense of dictatorship when a clear verdict is given by the people and the government is stable, it has a pure majority in the Lok Sabha. So in that cases, there may be a sense of dictatorship. And other demerit is we are against separation of powers between legislature and executive. We have not clearly separated legislature and executive as in the case of presidential system of government, which is followed in America. So here we are against separation because the executives are also the members of the legislatures. So this is a demerit because here the executive may not be responsible, because the same person who formulates the policy will supervise the implementation of such policies. So there is no conflict of interest. Definitely there will be a lack of responsibility in giving supervision to such policies. So this goes against the concept of specialization. So demerit is against separation of policies or separation of powers. Government by amateurs. Why we say government by amateurs? We know that most of the people who get elected to the Lok Sabha may not have good educational qualifications, because they need to fight in the constituency. There are many reasons, many factors to get elected. Factors like muscle power, money power. So an educated person may not contest the elections. So here we can say that governments are by amateurs. They do not have expertise in the subject, or they may do not have any idea regarding the nature of the policies. So generally, because elected persons will become the ministers, they do not have much experience. There are many people or many member of parliaments who were stalwarts, but exception is there are also few member of parliament who do not have a basic educational qualification, and such members had become ministers. They were part of the executive. So that is a demerit of a parliamentary form of government. Here we can say that in American polity, the President of America can select anyone, any expert in and taking him as a secretary. So an expert person is part of the executive. Definitely in that case, there will be a specialization. The policies would be created, formulated or implemented in a specific way. So here this is the demerit of our parliamentary form of government. So why we have adopted the parliamentary form of government? We know parliamentary form of government have its own demerits. It also has its advantages. But what are the reasons for its adoption? We know the presidential system of government, which is implemented in United States, that is United States presidential system. We have no experience of presidential form of government. As we know, since 1909, 1919 and 1935 Government of India Act, we got familiarity with the British parliamentary system of government. Gradually, we have been implemented these measures in our system or in our country. So we were more familiar, we got a familiarity with the system, the prime ministerial system, because the British is run by prime ministerial form of government, Westministerial model of government, and we were familiar with the model which Britishers have introduced in our country. So we know that familiarity is important. We did not take any chance or risk to adopt presidential system of government, which is not responsible to the Congress, but which gives a stability to the government. And our founding fathers have opted for responsibility, not stability. So as we are familiar with this system, parliamentary system, we have adopted the parliamentary form of government. The same thing what I've said is preference is given to responsibility. Here we have given preference to responsibility and not stability. As we know, in parliamentary form of government, we have a dual membership, that is a legislature is also executive. So we will generally avoid the conflict between legislature and executive. So there is a need to avoid such conflict. We have opted for parliamentary system of government. Here legislative and executive do not have any conflict, because he is the same person who is a member of the parliament and is also executive. So here there is no separation of power. As we know, we understand that this is not based on the doctrine of separation power, but here we could avoid the conflict between the executive and the legislature, which is a major bone of contention and which we could not afford because we have a very infant democratic country. And we also know that nature of the Indian society, because we have directly elected representatives in the Lok Sabha, and there were many problems like we had a lot of illiteracy, we had a lot of internal problems, like we have multi-religious system, we were not evolved, our political parties were also not that matured. So to give equal representation to all the sections of the society and to have an equality among the nation and to protect our secularism, our sovereignty, we have opted for parliamentary form of government. And because this is nature of the Indian society which has prompted us to adopt parliamentary system of government, because our founding fathers have thought that it is not the time to experiment with some other feature which we were not familiar with. So we have opted for parliamentary form of government. So that was the reasons why we have opted for parliamentary system of government. Now, as we know that the parliamentary system of government we have adopted from the British model. So we need to find the differences. It is not that we have copied all the things, all the provisions which are followed in Westminster model. We have though borrowed it, we have modified it according to the necessity and need of our Indian society. And what is the difference? What are the differences or distinction between the Indian model and the British model? We know India has a republic system. Our system is a republic. It is mentioned in the preamble also. We are a republic. Here republic in sense, our head of the state is not hereditary as we have in British, where the king or queen are hereditary nature. We have a republic system, that is the head of the state, that is the president. Anyone can become the president, probably provided he is qualified for that post. So India is a republic system. There is no system of hereditary here. So that is the major difference between Indian parliamentary system and Britain parliamentary system. Britain parliamentary system is monarchical and we are a republic. So we do not have a monarchical system, that is a hereditary system. And British system is based on the doctrine of sovereignty of the parliament. British system is based on sovereignty of the parliament. In Britain, parliament is the ultimate authority, parliament is supreme. But in India, we have constitution which is the supreme authority. Constitution is the highest authority, supreme law of the land. So we differ in this case, where parliament is supreme in Britain and in India, the constitution is supreme. The constitution is the source of power for all the organs of the government, be it legislature, executive or judiciary. It is the constitution and it is the Supreme Court which forms the custodian of the constitution. And here when we say central government and state government is not inferior to the central government, because union government and state government both derive their power from the constitution. So we can also say that we have a federal kind of polity here, and in federal polity parliament will not be supreme. It is the written constitution which forms the source of the power to all those organs of the society. So in British system, where parliament is supreme, as we know in British we have unwritten constitution, and in India we have a very detailed constitution which has a provisions of all the powers, structure and functions of various organs of the government. So in India, constitution is supreme, unlike in British where parliament is supreme. So this is also a major difference. Another distinction is British Prime Minister should be a member of the lower house. This is not government, this is lower house. Lower house is House of Commons. In Britain we call this as House of Commons. In India we have lower house in the name of Lok Sabha. So British Prime Minister should be a member of the lower house of the parliament, but in India it is not mandatory that Prime Minister should only be a member of the Lok Sabha. Even the member of the Rajya Sabha can also become Prime Minister. That is, member of the Rajya Sabha, he or she may not be directly elected, but the Rajya Sabha member can also become the head of the government, that is Prime Minister. Here we have the sense that even Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister, who was a member of the Rajya Sabha. Then Manmohan Singh was also initially a member of the Rajya Sabha, who have became Prime Minister. Deva Gowda also, I think, member of the Rajya Sabha, who became Prime Minister. So British Prime Minister should be a member of only lower house, that is House of Commons. In case of India, the Prime Minister could be a member of either house of the parliament, that is from Lok Sabha or from Rajya Sabha. So again, basic difference between the Indian model and British model. In British, we know member of parliament alone are appointed as ministers. When we say ministers, they are executive. As we know that in India also, only members of parliament should be appointed or made a minister, but there is a small difference. Here we have a provision, any other person who is not part of the member of parliament, or who is not a part of the parliament, who is not a member of the parliament, can also become a minister, provided that within 6 months he should get elected or gets nominated. He should get elected to the Lok Sabha or he should get nominated to the Rajya Sabha. So we have a time limit of 6 months. This provision is not there in Britain model. In Britain, only member of parliament could only become the minister. He should be a member of the parliament to be no part of a minister. So this we do not have. We have a provision of 6 months. And this is a very important distinction between Indian and British model. When we say that system of legal responsibility is prevailing in Britain. Here, when we say the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister would aid and advise the President in any executive action, that is, any executive action of the government is approved by the President, or the President is the final authority to approve any bill to make it into a law, or any action should be in the name of the President. So here there is a system of legal responsibility. Here, when the President signs or the head of the state signs any order, it is countersigned by the minister. In Britain, that particular order is countersigned by the minister, and if there is any inconsistency in particular function, then that particular minister is legally responsible. This system is not there in India. In India, the Council of Ministers or the Cabinet Ministers will not generally countersign any law. So we do not have the system of legal responsibility. There might be the reason because there are many such actions where the Council of Ministers would not take responsibility, because it is the collective action of the Parliament. So a single minister may not take the responsibility. So this system is not there in Indian parliamentary system. And we also do not have a system of shadow cabinet. Shadow cabinet is an exclusive feature of British model of parliamentary system. Here shadow cabinet is, we have an opposition party, we have a ruling party, and in ruling party we have various ministers, that is Council of Ministers. Similarly, in opposition also there will be a minister who are shadow to the ruling ministers. So this gives a direct interaction between the ruling government and opposition government. So the member of the shadow cabinet would follow the member of ruling party in whatever policies they are making. So there will be a very close interaction between the ruling party and the opposition party, and they are the ready alternate to form the government in case there is any dissolution of the house. So shadow cabinet is an important feature of British parliamentary system. So this was the class. We have discussed parliamentary form of government, we have discussed presidential form of government. There is a distinction between parliamentary and presidential form of government. We've also discussed the reasons why we have opted for parliamentary system of government, and we also discussed the basic differences between Indian model and Britain model. Just to have a quick check, we will be having few questions. So the parliamentary system of government in India is based on the pattern of parliamentary government existing in. As we all know, we have taken or we have adopted the parliamentary system of government in India from Britain, because we were very much familiar with this country. They have introduced many parliamentary laws in India. So whatever the system what we are following has its roots in Britain. So Britain is the correct answer. Is based on the pattern of parliamentary government existing in Britain. Next question is, which of the following characteristics is not related to parliamentary government? The characteristics which is not related So, resolution of lower house, it's not resolution, it's dissolution. Dissolution of lower house is a characteristic feature of the parliamentary government. So, we have to choose which is not the feature related to parliamentary government. So, this is true. Collective responsibility, as we all know that collective responsibility is the backbone of parliamentary form of government. So, this is also correct answer. Leadership of the Prime Minister. In parliamentary form of government, we have a very powerful Prime Minister, which is also sometimes referred to as Prime Ministerial form of government, and single executive. So, this is not the feature of parliamentary form of government because we have dual membership. So, single executive is wrong, and here we also have a case that we have two executives, one is nominal executive and one is real executive. Nominal executive, that is de jure executive as a president, and real executive, that is de facto executive as Prime Minister of India. So, single executive is not the feature of parliamentary form of government. Single executive is a feature of presidential form of government. Which of the following is not the merit of presidential system? So, we need to know what presidential system is. As we all know, presidential system is followed in United States of America, and we also know that presidential system is not responsible to the Congress. It is stable, but it is not responsible. So, which of the following is not the merit? Which is not the merit? Permanent government. Permanent government is merit because we know that presidential system is stable, it is permanent. It has, president would function for 4 years of term. And confirmation in policies, as we know, the president is not responsible to the Senate or to the House of Representatives. The policies are very much, in confirmation because the Congress generally do not ask for the policies. As we do have in our parliament, when opposition questions the policies, because it has to question, and because it is have a opposition status, there will be a question, counter question in the parliament. And here, as we are responsible to the parliament, it is the responsibility of the ruling party to answer the questions of opposition party. Here, confirmation is the policies is a feature of presidential system. Limited representation. This is wrong because in presidential form of government, the representation is very wide because the executives or the secretaries, as we call, they are not part of the parliament, that is Congress. So, the president has all the freedom to choose anyone from any section of the society depending upon their expertise. So, very wider representation, the president has a free hand to choose anyone as their secretaries. So, limited representation is not the feature of presidential system. Government by experts, this we should agree. When we have wider representation, there might be persons who are expertise on such subjects and they would be added in their executive, that is in their executive group. As we know, who will be the Secretary of State, who will be the Defense Secretary, those persons have expertise in those fields and those persons would only added in their executive. So, government by expert is also a feature of presidential system. Limited representation is not the feature of presidential system. Actually, this is a feature of parliamentary form of government. Is a little big question. Which of the following statement is not correct? So, according to 42nd and 44th Amendment Act, it is compulsory for President to comply with the advice of the Council of Ministers. This is true because we know Article 74 and 75 are very important in Prime Ministerial form of government, where Article it says that the Prime Minister who is the head of the Council of Ministers, or in other words, the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister should aid and advise the President. Here the President is binded by the advice of the Council of Ministers. That is what made mandatory by Article 42nd and 44th constitutional amendments. So here the President could not reject the advice of the Council of Ministers. It is mandatory, it is binding that the President shall follow the advice. It is not just advice, it has to be followed. So the President has to follow the advice of the Prime Minister, who is the head of Council of Ministers. So this is true. Presidential system is based on double executive. So this is not correct. Presidential system is not based on double executive, it is based on single executive. Double executive is a feature of parliamentary form of government. Here the President of America is both the nominal head and the real head, that is head of the state and head of the government also. So presidential system is based on single executive. So this is a wrong statement. So this is the correct answer here. We'll see other statements also. According to the Article 74, the Council of Ministers works under the leadership of the Prime Minister. Yes, as we already said, Article 74 is very important in prime ministerial form of government. Article 74 and 75 provides for parliamentary system in the center, in the union. That is also correct. So answer is this. This is a wrong statement. Moving on to the other question. Which of the following is a demerit of parliamentary system? Which of the following is a demerit of the parliamentary system? Yes, we have a compressed representation. It is also a demerit, because in presidential form of government, the President could choose anyone out of the parliament also to be added in their executive. But here in parliamentary system of government, only members of parliament should become a minister. So obviously it forms a demerit, because as we say, government by amateurs or government by not expert people. So definitely in compressed representation, we would generally have members who are not experts in the subject matter. Yes, there is an uncertainty of policies, because once the Lok Sabha gets dissolved, there may be a chance that other party would form the government, and the policies which have implemented by the previous government may be discontinued. So there is an uncertainty of the policies here. Obviously it's a temporary government, though the government has a term of 5 years, but that all depends upon the majority or the confidence which enjoys in the parliament. So even temporary government is a demerit of parliamentary system of government. And in presidential system of government, the presidential system of government is stable. So it has to do work for 4 years, and the Senate is not subject to dissolution. That is, the lower house, the House of Representatives, is not subject to dissolution. So here the answer would be all the above. The separation of power is the characteristic feature of which government? As we have known, separation of powers is very clear in presidential form of government. So in presidential form of government, the executive and legislature are separated. In parliamentary form of government, we do not have that separation of power, because we have dual membership, both legislature and executive. A single person could be both legislature and executive. So the separation of power is a feature of parliamentary form of government. In presidential, the separation of the power is a feature of presidential form of government. Sorry, it's not parliamentary form of government, it's presidential form of government. In parliamentary form of government, we do not have the clear separation of power. We have in parliamentary form of government dual membership. So answer is B. Which one of the following is not an essential feature of parliamentary system? Parliamentary system. Fusion of the executive and legislature. Yes, this is the future, because we do not have separation of power, we have fusion. Both legislative and executive are a single entity. So we have a fusion of executive and legislature. We have nominal head of the state. Yes, president is the nominal head of the state and he is a de jure head, and prime minister is the de facto head of the government. So this is also a feature of parliamentary form of government. Collective responsibility, again Article 75 says that collective responsibility is a feature of parliamentary system. Fixed tenure of executive, this is the feature of presidential form of government. This is the feature of presidential form of government and it is not the feature of parliamentary form of government. So, answer would be D. D is answer. Next question, we have in parliamentary form of government, ministers are appointed by. Who appoints the ministers in parliamentary form of government? He is appointed by the head of the state at his discretion. No, head of the state, as we know, it is president and president do not appoint minister. The ministers are appointed on the advice of the prime ministers. This will say the head of the government, will come back to this, the head of the state on the recommendation of the head of the government. This is true because the ministers are appointed by the president on the recommendation of the prime minister, who is the head of the council of ministers. So, this is the right answer, the head of the state. Here head of the state means it is president on the recommendation of head of the government, who is prime minister. So, the ministers are appointed on the advice of the prime minister. So, this is the correct answer. So, here we have completed our parliamentary system of government. Hope you like this class. Please do watch my videos. Thank you.